I've snagged my undercarriage. It smells very, very... That was deeply, deeply unpleasant. Today, I'm going to be sharing my secrets for finding wild camping spots in Ireland and Northern Ireland. We're going to do this while I'm actually out on a recce to find a spot that I've been guided to by an old trail on an over 100-year-old map. That was a bit of a waste of time. I'm in shorts so I can move fast, but there are a lot of brambles and nettles around. So yeah, let's go. Oh. Ooh. This is not a good start. Right, we gotta head down this way and find a gate that I need to cross. Just in case you're wondering where we are in Glenarth, which is the most beautiful of the glens of Antrim. Or at least it normally is when the weather doesn't look quite as bad as this. Oh. Well, that came out of nowhere. Getting wet and cold. Ambient temperature's 14 degrees today, so I thought I'd be warm. Oh yeah, and by the way, this video is sponsored by my lunch option, mac and cheese, which is Huel hot and savoury meal packs, but we'll talk more about that later on. That's really nice. So as I said, I found this location on a 100-year-old map, and that's using an app that I use quite often for planning and finding wild camping spots. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but first of all, hi sheep! Bye sheep, oh, off you go then. So simply put, wild camping here isn't legal, but if you do it the right way, you're gonna be grand. I've personally never heard of a wild camper getting into any kind of serious trouble here. At worst, they've just been asked to leave. That's about it. I think this is the gate I have to cross. And of course, as you know, there's only one valid way to cross a gate. My dad showed me that trick when I was about 10. Never forgot it. It's really easy to do, but makes you look like an absolute ninja. In theory, I am now following that track, that trail on that 100-year-old map, and it heads up here and hopefully is going to snake its way to the top of the glen. We'll find out. Right, what's the situation then with wild camping in Scotland, England and Wales? Well, Scotland, they've got right to roam, so you can pretty much camp anywhere within reason. England and Wales, on the other hand, it's not legal, apart from in Dartmoor in England, although it is tolerated in some places, but people will absolutely foam at the mouth if they spot you camping anywhere low down. There's this kind of rule that the only places you should be camping is above the highest stone wall. This is why English camping YouTubers are absolutely obsessed with finding the perfect bomb-proof tent, because for many of them, their only option for camping is somewhere pretty horrible and exposed. That rule doesn't really apply here, so you don't really feel like you have to get really high up to find somewhere to camp in Ireland, but some of the thinking behind that does still apply here. In Northern Ireland, there is nowhere which is legal or designated for wild camping. In the Republic of Ireland, there are a few places in the national parks, like Wildmeffin has got a designated wild camping spot. But again, if you're sensible, you're all good. I've camped, I have a list here, I've camped in fields, I've camped beside lakes, I've camped in forests, I've camped up mountains, I've camped in caves, and I've camped in what is arguably Ireland's only desert. And if you want to watch that video, it's up here and I'll link it at the end. Yes, a desert, waterless place in this green, lush country. Personally, I've never had any bother. I've never been moved on. And maybe that's because I follow sort of 10 rules. And I think it's important to see these as more guidelines and rules, because occasionally I will bend them a little bit if I really need to. Rule number 1 is don't camp within 500 meters of a home or a business. Whoever lives there, whoever works there, doesn't know you, doesn't know who you are. You could be an irresponsible fly camper who's going to cause some kind of hassle. They might get worried, they might call the police, or, you know, if they're the landowner, they might come up and ask you to move. So it's really just about not being seen, if at all possible. Ow! just stepped in a thistle. Number 2 then is don't camp in a public park or somewhere where there's a lot of people walking through. Ooh, I wonder who lives in here. Hello? Excuse me. Do you have any thoughts on the legalities of wild camping? Hello? Hello? Who's in there? Number 3, don't camp beside a car park or a road. I feel that one really should be self-explanatory. Never mind anything else, it tends to be where the worst kinds of campers camp. 4, don't camp in fields obviously being used for crops, silage, animals, because you're just going to annoy the farmer. I avoid camping in locations where there are really explicit no camping signs. Quite often if there's signs, it means they've had problems with campers in the past, so it's just best to not antagonize that landowner. Hello, Mr. Beetle. Or Mrs. Beetle. This reminds me of the big huge beetle from A Bug's Life. I'm a beautiful butterfly. Oh no, no, you can't fly. I'm just gonna assume he went on to live a long and happy life. Try to avoid camping in places where locals have publicly expressed their annoyance at behaviour of campers. You'll quite often see this if you go on the Facebook pages for the Lake District. People posting photographs, look at this place was trashed, what a mess. Wild campers are terrible. If you can, don't add any fuel to the fire and try and avoid those kind of honeypot, frequently trashed areas. Ooh, look at this. It's a waterfall up there. Can't believe I've never come up here before. This is why it's so important to do one of the things I'm going to talk about later. Oh no. Ow, 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 ow. Ah, I hate gorse. Follow leave no trace principles. That includes things like packing your rubbish away. If you have to go to the toilet, make sure you bury it properly or pack it out with you. Just have minimal impact on the environment. There's a herd of goats down there. Hi goats! Number 8, pitch late, leave early. Again, this is really just about not drawing attention to yourself or not making yourself an inconvenience to other people who use the area. If you, while you're out and about, bump into any landowners, farmers, it hurts so much. Talk to them. They're just human beings like everybody else. And a lot of the time, the resistance to having people camping on land is because of fears or misconceptions. I had a conversation once with a farmer, and during that conversation, I happened to mention, I've seen there's signs up in your fields that say, no trespass. And they said, yeah, I've had trouble. People camping, the people who were camping, they were leaving litter, they were cutting holes in fences. And then I said to him at the end, what if I wanted to wild camp in your land? And he kind of looked at me and then he said, well, you'd be okay. I think most times a nice friendly camp conversation is the best way to move these things forward rather than some kind of confrontation. But on that note, number 10 then is if you do get asked to leave, go. Pack up and leave. Have a friendly conversation, maybe you can win them over, but it's not the time and place to have that argument, to fight the battle when you are, in the eyes of the law, the person who's in the wrong. Oh no. That is a sea of what is probably tick-infested bracken, and I've got to fight my way up through it. I am here, you can see the old trail going up that way. Ugh, okay, I'm gonna fight my way through here, hopefully find somewhere to camp, and then we can discuss the 10 ways I actually find these spots. There is still just about, I can see a little bit of a trail up through here. So I'm trying to find that, I can just about see it through the bracken. I actually do have an 11th point I want to mention. It's kind of a bonus, and that is, I think I just saw someone, or it could have been a bird. Let's just be quiet for a little bit. It was probably a goat. They mostly come at night. Mostly. Ow. 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 Bonus point 11 then. Be careful about which locations that you find that you share publicly, especially if they're easy to get to locations, because that can lead to them getting trashed. Right. Oh! Ow! That twig, bing, that just went up the inside of my shorts. That was not fun. This is definitely some kind of road in here. I think most of these rocks that are lying in the middle, maybe at some point formed the sides and they've kind of collapsed in. It can't be a riverbed because there would still be water in it, and there isn't. Oh, I'm perfect. It's starting to curve around to the right, which is exactly what you see on the map. Alley up. We're about to come out of the forest. What? Is it just me, or did I just see 4 goats bounce out of a cave? I'm climbing up to where I saw those goats. Oh, I just put my hands in goat dung. Yeah, not so much a cave. Ooh. Right, let's get away from that edge. Oh. Okay, let's have lunch first, actually. We are having, for lunch, some Huel. This is a packet of Huel hot and savoury, and this works out cheaper than just about every dehydrated camping meal. There's 400 calories in this, there's 26 vitamins and minerals. It takes about 5 minutes to prepare once you've got the water boiled. Your meal comes in here, but unlike other dehydrated camping meals, you make it up in this plastic pot that you get, I think, with your first order. This is the Mexican chili, and it's all nutritionally designed, so unlike a pot noodle or something like that, it's actually quality food. There's loads of other flavors. There's mac and cheese, pasta bolognese, Thai green curry. That's a bin bag. There's other flavors on the website. And to make it up, I pour it into the pot, pour the water in. There's a little fill line on the inside of the container, which is handy. Give it a good stir. Stick the lid on and we'll leave that for 5 minutes. Hey Siri, set a timer for 5 minutes. I'm so sorry. Let me know if that's set off your Siri. Okay, while we're waiting for that, we'll start talking through my 10 methods to actually find really good camping spots. And number one is kind of an obvious one. It's checking social media. If you see someone who's wild camping a nice spot, you could ask them. Don't expect that they're always going to tell you, but it doesn't hurt to ask. You'd also join Facebook groups and see if people are posting different locations. Now, one warning with locations that get shared easily is be incredibly wary of locations that you see commonly shared publicly on social media, because very often at the weekend they could be absolutely packed with party campers. Number two then is, if you're a little bit sneaky, you can reverse engineer locations that you see on social media. YouTube, for example, quite often YouTubers will show you the entire pathway to really nice camping spots, and if you're clever and you know how to look at maps, you can trace and you can figure out exactly where they camped. As far as I'm concerned, if you're clever enough to figure out where it is, you might as well use the spot, but don't mess it up or I'll find you. Number three then, if you're gonna go and camp somewhere that's like a multi-day route, say, like the Dingle Way, the Kerry Way, the Wicklow Way, quite often those will have Facebook groups specifically for that trail. I did this when I did the West Highland Way in Scotland. I joined a West Highland Way Facebook group, and There were loads of people posting recommendations for places to camp. 4 then is related to this, is books, factual, physical books, non-digital stuff. Who would have thunk it in 2025? But yeah, if you're going somewhere again that's popular, quite often there will be an official book or even several books made about that route. And quite often they'll talk about accommodation, and quite often they'll mention camping, and I'll give you some hints or tips about places you could camp. But what about finding places that are new, that other people haven't been visiting? And that is where it gets interesting. And 5, first of all, is satellite imagery of a location. I use this all the time. I mean, if you zoom in, I think areas of trees look quite dark from high above, and you can zoom in, you say, okay, it's a forest plantation. Often that's places where you might find shelter. You can find streams and rivers. That'd be places where you might be able to find a water source. Apple Maps can have better satellite imagery than Google Maps, so don't always trust Google Maps. I found sometimes the imagery is out of date or it's a different time of year, so use multiple satellite imagery sources. Now, the one thing that imagery doesn't really tell you is about the topography of the land. Quite often a location can look completely different than you thought it was if you're just looking at it in satellite view, and that is then where I like to use an app. And there are other apps, but I like to use a hiking specific app called Hiker. I can check dedicated hiking and outdoor recreation maps for a specific area. So by looking at that and seeing how close and far apart contour lines are, you can find areas that are flat, or at least look flat. The other advantage of using something like Hiker is that it'll show you existing trails, and then you can like point by point plot out how to get to that location. And then you can also save the maps offline. One of the most stupid things that people do is they go off to remote locations, think they're going to rely on Google Maps, and then they've got no signal, they haven't a clue where they are. Whereas an app like Hiker lets you take your maps offline, and I just happen to be able to get you quite a significant discount from Hiker. So if you are interested in using an app like that, go and check it out in the description. Oh, and one other thing that Hiker does, which is really cool, is it lets you view 3D versions of the maps. Where I am right now, if you looked at it in a flat map or a flat satellite view and you didn't really know how to read that, you might not think it's that hilly. Turn on the 3D view and you realize it's pretty steep. Number 7 is probably my favorite way of finding locations, or at least in the last year. Oh, and hold on. Timer's ready, so I probably should have this food first. Right, let's take a look. Oh, so here is what this actually looks like. It looks pretty good. Let's try it. I haven't tried this one before. This is a Mexican chili. That's really nice. And just in case you're wondering, these meals are all plant-based, so they are suitable for vegans. If you really wanted to have some meat in it, you could bring, something along, salami or something like that, and chop it up and throw it in. It tastes a lot better than a pot noodle, I can tell you that. By the way, if you want to try this yourself, I've got a discount code. The details of that are down in the description. Right, I'm going to finish this off, and I'll give you my last 3 tips for finding wild camping spots. Number 7 then is the historical maps function on Hiker. This is a feature they released a couple of years ago, and what it lets you do is it lets you overlay really old maps, and the maps that I've been using, they're ranging between 100 and 150 years old, and on those old maps you can sometimes find laneways and ruins of houses and dwelling places and things. I found at least a couple of really cool camping locations this way. Ruins in forests that I didn't know existed, and ruins up in hillsides that I didn't know existed, and I've now found this location. Another tool that I've used are drones. Why should you hike up to the top of a hill when you can just fly a drone up to take a look for you? Or if there's a forest, you could fly it over the forest, you can look down into the forest and see if there are clearings. And by the way, when it comes to drones, don't think that it's your given right to fly the drone just because you're a YouTuber maybe, or you're making a video. I try my best not to fly when there's other people around, and if there are people around, I generally try and say, "Are you okay if I fly?" But I've seen some people like buzzing all over people's heads a couple of meters along ridges and things like that, and just don't do it. Yes, I'm such a drone expert. Number 9, if you're trying to find a location, you need to match that location to your fitness level, your experience level, the type of equipment you have, and the time of year and the time of day and things like that. You might find what looks like the perfect camping spot halfway up a mountain, but if you head up there in winter carrying 20 kilograms of kit and you're not well trained, you're not gonna have a fun time. So when you find a camp spot that you think is perfect, just make sure that you and your equipment is up to the task of getting there and having a comfortable night there in the conditions and time of year that you're wanting to go there. Oh! Well, that came out of nowhere. Ah! Hi, goat. Ah, well, I just got absolutely drenched. Let's see what's on up here. All right, my last tip, number 10 then, is quite simple. It is, don't be so lazy. There are some people, it seems, don't want to have to put in any effort into finding places themselves. They just want locations to be handed to them. If you do that, you're only ever going to find unoriginal locations that chances are really, really busy. You really need to get out, really spend time in a place. Do recce's, don't bring your camping stuff with you. Move fast and light, run if you can. You'll cover more ground, you'll see more places. You're more likely to take a chance and go off the beaten track and look around a corner that you wouldn't have looked around if you had all your camping stuff with you. And that is when you find the places that are truly magical. Places like this that I would never have come to had I only camped in, a bit of a drop there, had I only went and camped in locations that other people had told me about. I mean, look at this. We got a full rainbow. Look at that. Right, I gotta leave the edge behind because I'm following a trail that goes this way that I think will bring me off the top through some farmland. Don't act like you're not impressed. That's me onto this path. And the only reason I knew this path was here was because it showed up on that old map. And then I cross-referenced it on Google Maps, satellite view and Apple Maps, and was able to see that it was still here. Put in the research. Side quest. I've spotted, there's a little bunch of trees over there. And when I see bunches of trees, I always ask, why are they here? I've snagged my undercarriage. Ah. Well, that was terrifying. Steady on. There's something red in the trees up ahead. Let's go and have a look. Oh, there's a lot of dung and pee. Oh, that's awful. Look, there's undead in here. Oh, I mean, there are some people would put this in Airbnb. Oh, it stinks. Smells like concentrated sheep pee. What's round this way? Oh, not the nettles. I hate the nettle. Slipped. Is this the ensuite? Oh no, I think I just stepped in the ensuite. Oh, this is absolutely right. That was deeply, deeply unpleasant. This next bit has me slightly concerned because I'm now leaving sort of more remote hills and heading down to what on the map looks like, well, it looks like the road's gonna go straight through like at least one private farmyard. So we'll see if anybody tells me off. Or it might be an opportunity to have a little bit of a chat. This place looks abandoned. I think I've just spotted one of the owners. He's looking at me through his window. Well, there's nobody about. Maybe they wouldn't mind anyway. This is me back to my least favourite part of this journey. Back down to the main road. It's 5 p.m, so this is gonna be busy. So I'm gonna finish up here, put the camera away. I hope you enjoyed coming along with me on this recce. Let me know if you actually found those tips useful. Let me specifically know which ones you found useful. And if you've got any of your own you'd like to add, please let me know. Catch you next time. Bye-bye. Come on, horse. I'll race you. Come on. Let's go. Smell you later.